We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Dalet Amud Beis in Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 34b. We're in the middle of a brisa that's trying to determine where we learn out Nesachim by both the Carbon Talmud Shel Shachar and the Carbon Talmud Shel Ben Harboyim. Rebbe says it's the exact opposite. Arvis Mishal Shachris. We learn the Talmud Shel Ben Harboyim that it has Nesachim from Shacharis. Rashi over here says Rebbe Omer Shel Arvis Mishal Shacharis de Lakeves Hoechad ad Shacharis Koi. The words Lakeves Hoechad refer to the Carbon Talmud of the morning. Shenemar. So therefore, that's where we know primarily Nesachim, and we learn Arvis from over there. So the Gemara says, Bishlam al-Rabbanan. I understand according to the Rabbanan. Hai b'tamid shel ben harboim ksiv. As we said before in the previous Amud, this entire pasuk is talking about the Carbon Talmud shel ben harboim. Says there's Nesachim, and we learn from the Carbon Talmud shel ben harboim to the Talmud shel shachar. El Rebbe my time, but according to Rebbe, what's the reason? And the Gemara says, Amar Rava Barula. Rava Barula says, Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, La keves o echad, for the one sheep. Ezo keves shenamar bo echad. Which keves does it say the word echad? Havi Omer is the Talmud shel shachar. We know that is the Carbon Talmud shel shachar. Therefore, that's what the pasuk is referring to, and we learn out the Carbon Talmud shel ben harboim that it has nesachim from there. The Gemara says v'Rabbanan. So what do the Rabbanan do with the word echad? My echad. What does it mean? Echad miyuchad shebe'edro means you have to use the sheep in the flock that is special, that is unique. The Rebbe will respond to that. Mi umivchar nidarecha nafka. That's learned out from a different pasuk. It's learned out from the pasuk where it says mivchar nidarecha. It says mivchar nidrechem in the pasuk v'chol mivchar nidrechem asher tidru laHashem. So you learn out from mivchar that it has to be the choicest of the animals. The Rabbanan respond to you chad bechova v'chad benadava. What are you talking about? One of those pasukim is talking about a carbon that's an obligation. That's what we're talking about when we say miyuchad shebe'edro. It has to be the keves that is miyuchad for the Carbon Talmud. That's a carbon, that's a chova, that's an obligation. But the pasuk which says mivchar nidrechem, so that's talking about nedarim, it's talking about donations. So you need a different pasuk to tell you that has to be the choicest of your animals, utzrichi, and you need psukim by both of them. Rashi over here says, utzrichi yesh tzad nota shanedava tzarich liaposa kadesha tisratza ledoron. There is a side to say that when you're giving a nedava, you have to make it really nice so that it should be accepted. V'akabolas panav yesh tzad nota lomer shachova hamutelas tzarich lifroa chova mishulam. Another way to say it is no, when you have an obligation, you got to make sure you fully pay off your obligation, and therefore that's the one that has to be the choicest of the flock, so you need both psukim. And the Gemara continues quoting the Mishnah, Haya Kohen Gadol Zaken Oistanis V'chulu. It said if the Kohen Gadol was elderly, or if he was delicate, so then they would make the water a little warmer by putting in some hot water. Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Summer of Yehuda says, Ashashas Shel Barzel, Hayimecham and Meir of Yom Kippurim, they would warm up blocks of iron before Yom Kippur, Umatilan L'soch Tzonin, and then they would put it into the cold water, Kadesh Tafik Sinasan, to take away a little bit of the cold temperature. So the Gemara asks, V'alo mitzaref, how could they do this on Yom Kippur? Isn't it a malacha of mitzaref? Rashi says, Hanosin barzel minoesh l'mayim, mitzarfo mechazko makshe. What happens is when you take iron straight from the fire and you put it into the water, it hardens, it makes it stronger. That's a malacha. It should be a problem to do that on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbevi says, Shelo higia l'tzirif, it's a situation where it doesn't actually harden fully. Rashi says, Shelo higia l'tzirif, kavar hayam mitzonin b'mixas. It was already a little bit cooled off before they put in the water. Afal pi sheyonosin b'layla b'soch gecholim lo chashos enu maluvin kol kach she'elo chizak al yadei mayim. It wasn't so hot that when you put it into the water, it's going to strengthen. So that's according to Rabbevi, why that's not a problem. Abaya says, Afilu tema shegi l'tzirif. You could even say you put it in and it does harden, but davar shein miskavin mutter. This is a davar shein miskavin, so it's mutter, meaning you're not intending to harden the iron, you're intending to cool off you're intending to warm up rather the water, so it's not a problem. Gemara says, does Abaya really say that davar shein miskavin is mutter? Vatanya, but we learned in a brayso, besar orla, so it talks about the area of the orla, and we learn out afilu b'makom sheyesham baheres yikots. Even if you have a situation where you have a baheres, meaning the person has tsaras, now normally you're not allowed to cut away the negat tsaras, but if you're doing the mitzvah of milah, so it says it's okay. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia. V'havinon ba kra lamali. We ask on this brayso, what do we even need a pasuk for at all? Rashi over here says, kra lamali basar l'rabos hamenuga. What do you need a pasuk, the word basar, to say that even a menuga can do the bris milah? Dematzi l'mechtav yimol or lasso. V'kasav basar l'rabos basar amar b'negoyim adam kiyiyeh ba'or besaro lamali kra. Hadavar shein miskavin. The question is, what do you need a pasuk for? Isn't it a davar shein miskavin anyway? The intention here is to do do the mitzvah of Mila. The intention is not to cut off the Beheres. Why do I need a pasuk to allow us to cut off the Beheres? V'yomer Abaye, and Abaye says, L'Rebbe Yehuda, this whole brayso follows Rebbe Yehuda. D'amar davar she'em miskavin aser, because Rebbe Yehuda holds davar she'em miskavin is aser, so therefore that's not a reason to allow it. So you need an extra pasuk. As Rashi says, V'yomer Abaye alma svira leila Abaye dekra Messiah leila Rebbe Yehuda. What do you see that Abaye is saying? Abaye is saying there's a pasuk that supports Rebbe Yehuda. Certainly sounds like he holds like Rebbe Yehuda. Miditzrich kra l'mishriya. The pasuk had to go out of its way to permit it. So it sounds like Abaye says davar she'em miskavin is aser. Yet Abaye just said before davar she'em miskavin is mutter. So the Gemara answers, Hani mili b'chol Torah kula. That applies by the entire Torah, as Rashi will say. By Yisurei Doraisa, that's where Abaye says davar she'em miskavin is aser. Avalacha tziruf d'Rabbanan, who here tziruf is only an isur d'Rabbanan. It's not an isur d'Oraisa, so therefore we can use davar she'em miskavin being mutter. Rashi over here says, b'chol Torah b'Yisurei Doraisa kagon kotzitz baheres. Cutting off a baheres is an isur d'Oraisa. Tichsiv hishamer b'nega hatzaras v'yamar mar v'kotzitz b'haroso hakosav medaber. So when you're talking about an isur d'Oraisa, so that's something that you have to be concerned for davar she'em miskavin aser. But again, when we're talking about tziruf, it's only d'Rabbanan, so we're not concerned about davar she'em miskavin. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hey viyuhu lebeis haparva. They brought the Kohen Gadol to the Beis haparva. This is for his second immersion. Uva kodesh haisa was in the area of the Beis Hamikdash that was kodesh, that was holy. Parsu sadin shal butz beino levein am. Once again, they spread a curtain made of linen between him and between the people for privacy. Kidesh yada v'ragel of upashat. He sanctified his hands and his feet, and then he took off his clothing. Rabbi Meir says Pashat, first he took off the clothing, Kidesh Yadav V'Raglav, and then he sanctified his hands and his feet. This was a machlokas we had earlier. Yarad V'Taval, he then goes down and he immerses. Olav and Estapik, he comes up, he dries off. Heviu lo Big Day Lavan, they bring him the Big Day Lavan, the white clothing, the white garments of linen. Lavash, he wears them, V'Kidesh Yadav V'Raglav, and now he sanctifies his hands and his feet again. B'Shachar Hayalovesh Pelusin Shel Shnei Maser Mana. When it came to the Shacharis, when he got dressed in the morning, which is right now, so then he would wear linen garments from the area called Pelusin, meaning this was an area which made fine linen garments, which were very expensive. They were 12 mana. Bein Harbayim, but when he got dressed in the afternoon, so at that time he's doing the avod of taking out the kaf and the machta. So then Hinduyin Shel Shmona Meo Zuz. Then he wore the garments from India, which were worth less. They were worth only 800 zuz. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say b'shachar yaloveh shel shmona aser mana. In the morning he wore garments that were worth 18 mana. Ubein ha'arbayim shel shnei maser mana, and bein ha'arbayim he wore garments that were worth 12 mana. Hakol shlosha mana, a total of 30 mana. Elu mishel tzibur, and the Mishnah finishes off. The funding for these garments was paid for by the public funds. V'imratza lahosif mosif mishalov. He wanted to make them more expensive. He wanted to add to it. He would have to add from his own money. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Aleph.